Hello, Buzz TV. It's Noel Fielding. I'm buzzing for Buzz TV.
You're listening to a Buzz podcast.
How do you feel about getting back on the road again?
Mixed. I've got mixed feelings. I'm slightly dreading it. And slightly really excited to become like the circus again. Turn up in town to do a show and then leave in the night. I loved it, but it's what we do really as comedians. It's the thing that you do. You do that for years and years and years before you get on telly, you know? So it's the thing you're best at. But then, I guess, the last Boosh tour, it was a 100-date tour, and it was massive arenas, and it was insane. We were like Aerosmith or something. We partied too much, and it was crazy. So I think maybe I couldn't do it again for 5 years. We pretty much did it. That was it. It wasn't going to get any better than that. And it was very exhausting, very mental time for me. So I was a little bit tentative getting back into it, but I've been doing lots of stand-up and doing some warm-ups, and I'm really enjoying it. So hopefully it can be a different kind of tour. Tour where we see stuff in the daytime, like the local maze or, a castle. And go home after the gigs occasionally and drink peppermint tea and read a book instead of partying till dawn, which is what we did on the last Boosh tour.
So what is it about stand-up in specific that keeps you coming back to it?
The audience, really, the people, There's nothing like doing a gig. I think it's weird because I think maybe in order to see a comedian and judge a comedian, you really have to go and see them live, because that's the thing that they do. Television's a weird thing because I think television and radio is a sort of written thing, It's that you write it and then you rehearse it and then you film it and then you edit it. There's a lot of processes in the way before it reaches the audience, and you're not there when the audience is there. So it's a little bit frustrating as a performer to not have that thing where you have an idea and you go and you do it live and then the audience is right there responding. There's something really amazing about that. Sort of like punk, you can write a joke in the morning and be performing it that night on stage, and you know immediately whether it's funny, because they will either laugh or they won't laugh, and that is it. There's no getting around that fact. You can keep telling yourself it's funny, but if they're not laughing, it isn't funny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the buzz of that, and it's quite gladiatorial, It's a bit of a challenge.
Is it quite like an adrenaline rush, and the immediacy from the crowd is quite buzzing?
Insane, yeah, but I also like improvising, so it's a bit like a sort of mental workout, and it's great because you try and make a gig that's just a show that's just for that night and that you won't repeat again, that's got specific stuff to the audience, and you include them as much as you can, and it's a sort of it is an amazing thing. It's sort of, when it's working, it's really nice way to live it, It's quite tiring, that's all. You get very tired, and stand-up's a weird one because, not that it'll be a stand-up show, it'll have some stand-up in it, like the actual stars and characters, music, animation and stuff, but it's very tiring when you're doing stand-up because you're trying to juggle 12 plates, spin 12 plates at the same time. You're sort of trying to get chill, but then you're trying to bring in other scenes and maybe other people from the room and then callbacks and things that you built on that night. It's a strange one. It is quite mentally tiring. So when you do a lot of them in a row, physically it's quite demanding, and it's quite an unhealthy lifestyle. You're always coming out of gigs to charge stuff, and you don't really want to get to bed, so you end up drinking a little bit, and you don't eat very well. You have to be quiet. I can understand why Mick Jagger at 40 or whatever started jogging and got sick of it. Because I think maybe when you're young, you just go and party and never sleep, do your gigs.
Brilliant. What can Cardiff expect from an evening with Noel Fielding?
What can't they expect? A live hawk being released into the crowd? No. Well, hopefully there will be some stand-up. There'll be some stand-up, and there'll be some characters, and there'll even be a bit of story in the second half. And I'm using some animation elements, but trying to fuse them a little bit so that they're live, so that I can interact with them on stage, and then maybe even somehow interact with the audience. And a story maybe, and some music. I've been working with Serge and Kasadin with some of the music, so hopefully it'll have a lot of variety in it, and it'll have a lot of different elements. A big show rather than just a stand-up show, but there'll be a big chunk of stand-up as well. Hopefully lots of different stuff. I've tried out the first half, and that's that seems to be going well. We've done that like 6 times. I've been doing stand-up constantly, working up new stuff, and we've written the second half. We've got some warm-ups to try that out soon. So it's all coming together. A lot of the film, animated stuff in film, so that's being made as we speak, and some of the music. So it's all coming together slowly. So, yeah, hopefully it'll be good. It's a different kind of thing, you know? It won't just be a sort of man talking for an hour and a half. It'll be... And my brother's coming, and Tom Meason, who I work with in Luxury, he's a comedian, he's part of Arm and Meason, he's coming with me. So there'll be 3 of us.
Oh, brilliant.
More of a show, really.
How do you find working on kind of getting it ready to show ready with your kind of notoriety and fame when you're working on material or certain bits? How do you find kind of the audience reaction?
You sort of get a nose for it in as much as you have an idea and you go, I think it's going to work. But really, until you try it out in front of an audience, you never really know. So in a way, you're using the audience, you know, not as guinea pigs as such, but you are using them and they're helping you write the show. Because whatever they react to tends to stay in the show, you know? And if they really react well to something, you do go back and maybe extend those bits or add those bits, or you get rid of the bits that are not quite working. So it's like a constant dialogue between you and the audience where you sort of try stuff. They like bits, you take those bits, and you add some more, and then you see what they like next time. And it's a weird process, but hopefully it gets quite strong because of that process. So by the time you've done 10, 20, 30 gigs, the show starts to be really bulletproof because it's sort of it's tested, it's tried and tested. Whereas with television, it never really is. You have ideas, you film them almost in secret, and then you put it out, and you never really... It's a weird process, television, unless you're using an audience.
Yeah. Talking about television, how have you found the reaction to the second season of Luxury Comedy compared to the first one?
like night and day. I mean, literally, the first one, people either loved it or hated it. There's nothing in between. It's the most extreme reaction to anything I've ever done, which is quite shocking because, you know, it was on E4, it's a little comedy show, half an hour late at night. It wasn't exactly BBC One time. So I was quite surprised. I mean, obviously it's the first thing I did was Boosh, so that was always going to be difficult anyway. And I was probably feeling a bit like that when I made it. I was probably feeling like I wanted to just... the Boosh got so big and it became like you were part of this whole big machine that was rolling along and making money and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And me and Julian were sort of like... started it as this funny little thing in our bedroom, you know, and then started doing it in the Edinburgh Fringe and stuff. And but by the end, it was like we're playing the O2 and Wembley and, you know, on the cover of Time Out and Ron Johnson Robinson. It was always this big thing, you know? The show was enormous. And so I think maybe the first season of Luxury was a reaction to that a little bit, and the whole idea of getting slightly famous, the celebrity thing, and people wanting to have your photo all the time, and getting invited to parties and going out too much, and all that stuff. So in a funny kind of way, maybe I wanted to get back to art school and just make some stuff, you know, that was experimental and weird again, and just try some stuff out, really, which they said I could do. I think the thing about the first one is it's difficult. I could talk about this all day, actually, but in a weird way, what happened was, I think that there were some good characters in it and good ideas in it, and the animation was beautiful, and the music was really good, and good people in it, but maybe there was something about it that was very concentrated and difficult to penetrate unless you really gave it a lot of time, you know, like a difficult album.
Yeah, I felt I loved it. I felt it's kind of like a Captain Beefheart or something like that, where you've got to listen or watch it a couple of times.
Yeah, well, I think it's layers. It has so many layers in it that, you're exactly right. But I think maybe, and rightly so, a lot of people don't have time to do that. So a lot of the reviews that I gave it 4 minutes was terrible, and you just think, well, you couldn't possibly write a review on it if you only watched 4 minutes of it, because the first time even my friends watched it, they were like, wow, I watch it again straight away, because sort of the visuals I didn't really take in anything he was saying, or there's so much, it's like an overload of the senses. So, I mean, I loved it. I mean, it's like a punk album or something to me. I just wanted to make that, and I think that's probably the thing that was difficult, was that there were little bits of narrative and bits of sketches mixed together, which that isn't really how people watch television, so that was kind of difficult. So I think in the second one, I really good elements in the first one. And I just wanted to try and make those elements more appealing to a wider amount of people. So I thought, what can I do? So I went back to basics a little bit and sort of thought, well, story's always the way, really. It's how it's taught, and the Boosh is a story. And stories we understand, we follow something. Even if it's quite a small story, it doesn't matter. You are following something. So it was like, right, let's put them into stories. And also my character, maybe make my character more normal so that I'm a way into the audience. And I'm basically the audience point of view. If there's weird stuff in it, I can comment on that stuff and go, oh, that was a bit weird. Rather than sort of me being weird as well, which in the first one, it was a bit like, there was no foundation because everything was weird, which I'm really proud of doing that show because I don't think anyone's ever done a show like that. And also my friend who I did it with is an art student, so he thinks differently, you know, he's an animator. He's not bothered about some of the things I'm bothered about. He loves the reaction because it's so strong, it's stimulating. But, and when we did art class, you know, my teacher always said the strongest reactions are the best, even if people hate it. If someone's sick, they look at a piece of art and they're sick, literally sick, it will be the best thing in the world. Strongest reactions, but difficult to take though when it's your name on it.
Yeah.
People are going, someone called it the second 9/11.
It's a bit harsh.
I know, which is pretty funny. But the second one, we were all like guns blazing, right, we've got to sort of, you know, in our bulletproof vest. And funny enough, people sort of liked it. And the reviews were good, and the people on the internet were kind, and the ratings went up. So we were like, oh, okay. So it's really weird. Really took us by surprise, and we were like, yeah, people kind of liked it. And went, yeah, I like this one. It's much better. And I was like, okay, really? Sort of was ready to fight. And, you know, it's weird because people sort of went, yeah, I sort of got that. I got into that one. So in a strange way, the guy that I worked with, Noel, I think he didn't find it as stimulating or as exciting as the first one. The first one caused much more of a fuss, really, even in a negative way, you know. People really did sort of get furious about it if they didn't like it, or really defend it if they loved it, you know, which you don't get that often.
Yeah.
There were battles going on on the internet that I didn't even know about. People going, this is the shittest show, and other people going, you just don't get it, it's the best show, and other people going, you're an idiot, anyone who likes this is a moron, and other people go, well, I'm not a moron and I love it, you're the moron. It's like madness. And I was it's quite amazing, really, that it caused a mini stink, because it was a small show, you know, on E4, and I wasn't expecting it at all.
I was wondering, because I've got you on the phone, this is a question I've always wanted to ask you. Where did the idea of Fantasy Man come from?
Fantasy Man?
Yeah.
Wow, Fantasy Man. What did I think? I thought, because I'm always doing stuff that seems to be fantastical, I thought it would be quite funny to do a character that is completely lives in a fantasy world. That was the main idea, that it's just ridiculous. And he had like a blonde quiff at one point, and he sort of rode on the back of a tiger and drank balsamic vinegar, and he was a weird sort of, it was a bit like some Flash and the Boosh, and I just thought, that's not quite right. And then I've been reading a lot of Don Quixote, so I sort of thought, wow, actually, this guy Don Quixote, he sort of thinks he's in a fantasy world, but it's much funnier that he isn't in a fantasy world, but what you see is his point of view, and then every now and then you see the reality of where he is, and it'll be endorsed, and, you know. But in his mind, he's sort of battling all these creatures in this kind of neon world. But we like the idea, I think it was Nigel's idea, that it would be like a Tron kind of world, you know? So it would be like Tron, it would look like all neon and weird, what he can see, but actually then it keeps jolting back to reality, and he's just in Hackney. And when we had that idea, that at really dangerous points of his mission or his battle, someone would go, oi mate, and he'd be back in sort of Hackney. That was the sort of main idea. So it was very Don Quixote, but then once we got the costume together and he became like a knight, and I sort of got that silver hat, that sort of knight's helmet, and his gold leggings and stuff. They're putting that character with a tough on his chin in real life situations in Bethnal Green seems pretty funny. Just the idea of him going, I'm Fantasy Man, and people go, who the fuck is this dick? Oh my god, he's got a cup on his chin. And so I guess Don Quixote was a big influence for that, but it was funny, that character really struck a chord with everyone straight away. There's something quite straight great about him. He's a sort of, I think I was quite influenced by Graham Chapman, the way that he managed to play characters like King Arthur in Holy Bell, in a very straight way, but sort of high status, and sort of trying to sort of keep his authority, but everything around him is ridiculous and sort of quite pompous in a weird way, but sort of very earnest, actually. And then everything else is ridiculous. But it was one of those things that it just worked straight away, and I felt I sort of half didn't know whether to just do a Fantasy Man series the second time. You know, I thought, wow, this could be a show. It's got enough to it that you could make a show out of it. I really sort of felt like I'd like to do that, or a film, a Fantasy Man film. But I guess maybe as well, because Don Quixote exists, you know, and it is basically a version of that. I know Terry Gilliam's been exploring that kind of thing for a long time, that sort of vibe. And Don Quixote is an amazing book. I mean, it's long, and, you know, it's all pretty much, once you've read 500 pages, it's the same sort of thing over and over again, but it's such a great idea, and it is very funny, considering it was written in the 15th century. I don't know, so I guess it sort of resonates because it's a character that is a little bit familiar in a way, sort of delusional kind of character as a hero in his own mind, but is actually an idiot. But then obviously you sort of want him to succeed as well. You will him on because he's pure or something. He's like a knight. He's sort of trying to the good of society, or he's always trying to rescue someone. There's something quite nice about him. I mean, the problem is for me is I get really unique and do really intricate stuff, so you could have easily done 3 hours on Fantasy Man. You know? And I think maybe the reason the first series of Luxury suffered a little bit is you only saw glimpses of some of these characters that maybe wanted more airtime, you know? And maybe there were too many characters in it, so people just were like, it's an overload, you know? And maybe I should have just picked, you know, New York Cop, Dandelion, and Fantasy Man, and the more successful ones, and just concentrated on them a little bit more. But then you don't know that at the time, you know? You're just trying lots of different stuff out. And I think we did that in the second series. We brought back the ones that we felt were successful, or more successful, or people liked, or that we felt we could do more with, you know? It's a kind of evolution. You're always learning, and no matter how much you learn, you still make massive mistakes, and you can't believe it, you know? Like, you just don't realise, because there's so many elements to writing comedy that you just go, I can't believe we missed that. How did we miss that? Or, I can't believe we forgot to do that. You just can't, you're kicking yourself. You go, we know this, we've learned this. And occasionally you make mistakes, you know, and it's always a bit wonky. And you always feel like you can do better. And in the Boosh we were the same. We never really wrote anything that we didn't feel we couldn't do better. We were always trying to learn, you know. I think with me and Julian, the things I was really proud of were our dialogues and our double acts. It was good and it was classic and it felt strong. And maybe the episode we were on the desert island, that seemed to just write itself, take on a kind of power. That's probably the thing that we did that I think. And the radio show I really liked that we did. But other than that, every time I watch anything that I've done myself, I go, I could have done that better. This could have been better, which I think is healthy.
Yeah.
It keeps going all the time, but I still don't know what I'm doing. I've been doing it years now, and I still don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. There's lots of stuff I watch back and go, God, now I've made that, and I've watched it back to see how I could do it better, but it's very difficult because it's too late by then, and, you know, you've done it. So you can try and counter that by getting it to a certain stage and then rehearsing it or filming it in a really rough way, and then it's never quite the same, you know? You never quite know how it's going to come out, especially when the visuals are so strong. But I felt like with the second Luxury, we sort of hit something that we sort of managed to get a place where it was all happening and in one world, and I was the character that was most effective, and Roy's really helped. And I feel like if we did another one, really nailed it now that format in place. We could just, again, eliminate some of the stuff that didn't quite work as well, concentrate on the stuff that worked well, using that kind of format and that place and those characters, and do something really good. The vibe of it was a bit more happy as well. I think the vibe of the second one was more joyful and silly and sort of charming, whereas and funny, actually, which is one of the reasons I did it in Hawaii. I just thought it'd be something like a holiday, and, you know, that vibe. Because I felt like Luxury was terrifying, the first one. It was like a sort of horrendous, concentrated LSD nightmare. But it was only ever going to be for certain people, because it was a bit scary, you know? But that's fine as well. I think, and if I'd have done the same, I wouldn't have made the first one. I wouldn't have made the second one if I hadn't made the first one. I wouldn't change the first one either. So, in a way, it's like albums. You just try lots of different stuff, and hopefully, it's like Lou Reed. You just go, wow, that sort of industrial metal album he's got, what's that? Now, in hindsight, you go, wow, imagine doing that. And then he sort of, the next album's quite poppy. I mean, he's sort of all over the shop. But I think if you don't get those things out of your system, where do they go? You know, you kind of have to try a lot of different things. Otherwise you get really stagnant really quickly, you know. If you just reach one formula and you go, that's it, that works, then you sort of, people want you to do that for the rest of your life, and it gets boring, you know.
Yeah. I've always wondered...
Really quickly go, oh yeah, I know what he does next, and then move on to someone else. Part of it is keep people guessing, even if you make them angry occasionally. Like Bowie, I suppose, a lot. He just always doing something different. And you sort of, I mean, imagine when he did Tin Machine, people were pretty furious. Or when he killed off Aladdin Stone. But he never bothered him though. He just carried on doing that for the whole of his career. He just went, yeah, I've done that. Next. And people were like, please do that again. The Thin White Duke or whatever. And he'd go, no, I've done it. I sort of understand that. Because I think if you're not interested, it's impossible to make the audience interested. I think you have to be interested in your own work, otherwise it won't come across, you know.
I've always wondered if because you do such a variety of kind of art forms, from your painting, writing, and music. Do you prefer one over the others?
No, but I think they all balance out my personality in a weird way. The comedy I love doing, I love the social sort of aspects of stand-up. Painting really relaxes me, so I like doing that because it's a chance to give myself a break, you know, because I really enjoy it. It's quite mellow for me. These TV shows are really good fun as well, but they're nothing like live shows. I mean, this live show's been really liberating because it can be anything, really, and you've got a couple of hours, you know, in front of an audience where you can kind of take them on any journey you want or do whatever you want. So it's frightening and daunting because it could be anything, but it's also pretty liberating. So we've sort of come up with a lot of new stuff, and also the stand-up, which I'm getting back into, and then, yeah, I've been really enjoying it. So, I don't know, I think maybe I'm enjoying it because I've just done 2 TV shows back-to-back as well. So, I think the problem with the TV is it's a 2-year process where you're sort of shut away in a room writing, and then you're shut away in a room filming it, and you're shut away in a room rehearsing it, you're shut away in a room editing it. It's a very private, sort of weird process. And then it comes out on telly. You don't really know how it went down because you don't really see anyone, or your friends like it, or you get a few reviews or people on the internet, but you don't really know. Whereas live, you go and do it, and they're there, and they either laugh or they don't. Maybe I was craving that a little bit again, just sort of the idea that getting an audience involved makes it a bit more exciting and scary.
Finally, winter's coming up. What's your top fashion tip over the cold period?
Wow, winter. Well, it's nice that winter's coming up because I like wearing coats. Summer's a bit annoying for fashion. There's nothing really, unless you've got a really amazing body, which, you know, I don't think anyone feels they have. Unless you're 20 and you're really slender and beautiful. Summer's a bit annoying. Also, we're really pale. I know when I went to Australia last time, everyone's just really happy to get their body up. But we don't really do that in this country, so we're all pale. So I think I always feel more comfortable in the autumn. Autumn's my favourite. You can wear kind of a jacket. And winter's good as well because you can wear quite cool stuff. I mean, it's the jacket. If you can get a really good jacket for winter, a really good coat, then you're set. A coat that people go, oh, I love that coat. Where'd you get that? Then you can wear it all winter, and you're done. Everyone's going to go, wow. So I usually trawl like second-hand shops and try. My tip for fashion is try stuff on that you don't think, that you're not sure is going to work. Like try on at least 5 things in a second-hand shop that you think that's never going to work. Occasionally, it'll surprise you, and you'll go, oh my God, this is the best jacket ever. I wasn't even going to try this on. It's so ridiculous. And then occasionally it just works, and then everyone goes, wow, where'd you get that? And you go, I know, I wasn't even going to try it on. But if you can get a really good coat for winter, you're done. Like I got a really weird sort of Joseph and the Technicolor dream coat last winter. It was a bit more muted colours, but it had like such a weird vibe to it. It sort of looked African, Egyptian, like a mod coat, like a sort of Joseph and his Technicolor dream. It looked like a Willy Wonka. It looked like everything was one, but somehow it sort of worked. But be brave. Just wear what you want as well. People will always come round. Often when you wear what you want, people at the beginning go, "Oh yeah, that's ridiculous," and then about a year later, they go, "Oh no, I really like that." But what did Adamant say? Ridicule is nothing to be scared of. What a mantra.